Hello everybody, my name is Freaksy and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I want to talk about the Steam Machine, something that is supposed to be releasing later this year. I really want to talk about if Valve's newest console is going to be something for the masses or if it's something that's only going to have appeal to a particular audience. Because on paper this is a really interesting idea, a small living room machine built around Steam, aimed at people who want PC gaming without a full desktop experience. But at the same time, people are talking about how the machine might only be able to output 1080p. And with some of the price points that are being floated around and suggested for the console, it's really getting people to debate if it's worth it against other things already on the market at the moment. So, a 1080p target in some ways does sound sensible. It's more affordable, it makes performance easier to manage, and for a lot of people, it still fits their TV setups absolutely fine. But at the same time, it's really hard to look at and think, hang on a second, even a Switch 2 can output 4K in certain situations. And now at the moment, we're talking about the brand new Steam box here. So it makes the question obvious for me. Should Valve have gone bigger? Should have they pushed for better hardware, even if it meant it's more expensive of a console? Because if the Steam Machine ends up being too close to the Steam Deck docked experience, then some people are going to question, is there any point in the console at all? So for me, this is where things get a bit awkward. But around the rumoured price of the Steam Machine, which is around 600 to 700 Great British pounds, you're already looking at a Steam Deck and dock covered in that price, which gives you the handheld play and big screen play experience all in one package. That is a really strong argument. And yes, the Steam Machine would probably be more optimised for a living room experience, and yes, in theory, it would be a cleaner experience in that big screen mode. But if the end result is just Steam Decked but in a box, then it just feels like a bit redundant. And that doesn't convince me that it's a bad product, but it's just something Steam really needed to think about. Is there any point in releasing a console so unutilized if it's only going to be a rumored 1080p, when for a lot of games you can get a quite competent 1080p output on the Steam Deck dock and you just have to kind of mess with the resolution slightly to get it to be optimized and look as nice as possible. And so, the combination of these two rumors, one, it being only a 1080p console, and two, it also being quite a high price point, both have me slightly just concerned about who this console is going to be for. Because, as we know, things like the PS5 are already going to be at a cheaper price point and output in 4K compared to the Steam Machine. As well as obviously it not having the output of a PS5, considering its price point being even more. So for me, this is the part of the discussion that does get really, really interesting. Who is this actually for? Because for someone already deep into the PC space, this may feel more like a luxury item than a necessity. If you already have a gaming PC or laptop, then a Steam Machine is not replacing that. It is adding another option or another way to play. But for people who are not already in the PC and Steam ecosystem, this changes everything. If you are someone who has only ever played on console, or you have not got into gaming on the PC because the whole thing feels too expensive and complicated, then the Steam Machine could be a really appealing middle ground. You get access to Steam, you get a simple box that goes under your TV, a huge library, and once you are in the ecosystem, Valve knows that you're probably not going to leave because they've got such really great price games and a really huge accessible library compared to other ecosystems like Microsoft or PlayStation. And honestly, I can really see the appeal of that. Having something like this in your living room. Not everybody wants to come home from work, sit at a desk, and go straight back home and go back to another computer to play their games. Definitely for me, somebody who sits at a computer all day for work, coming back home and then switching on the computer again to play games can feel like a tedious task at time. So sometimes it's really great to just turn on something, sit on the sofa, turn the telly on, and play something without dealing with a full-on setup experience. And I think that's where the Steam Machine makes sense to me. People who spend all day working on computers, the idea of a proper living room gaming machine sounds great. It is less raw power and more about comfort, less about chasing the specs possible and more about making gaming easy. And this is an ecosystem and a group of players and people that Steam and Valve don't currently have, as their audience is mostly hardcore gamers who only play on gaming PCs. And so for me, I think that this living room appeal, the timing gets really interesting for me, especially as when you look at the competition, we have Sony, we have Nintendo, and we have Microsoft. And as we know, there are a lot of rumors that Microsoft are looking to maybe move away from Xbox as a hardware, and making it and manufacturing the hardware and the consoles themselves. So I really do believe that Valve are trying to release this console around a similar time that Xbox are looking to get out of the market, to offer them a alternative with a huge library of games where you know you might spend a little bit more money initially to pay for the console, but again you're going to make that up in the price of all of the games as they're going to be a lot cheaper. I definitely think that this is a really great grab from Valve to try and get a load of new players at a time where they're looking at the market seriously switching in terms of where people are going to be playing their games. So, I think to round out that discussion, again, it all really lands on if the price is sensible for this console. If Valve keep it affordable, then it has a real chance. But if it gets too close to a price of a proper gaming PC, then a lot of people will think, well, I might as well just buy a desktop instead. That is the tightrope they have to walk. Too cheap, and people may doubt its performance. Too expensive, and the whole idea is lost. So I think really with the console being announced for later this year, they really need to discuss with people the price point and what it's going to output. As we know, there is a lot of issues with hardware and RAM and all these things at the moment, and prices of other consoles like the PlayStation being increased. So I think that, as it is a really worrying time for gamers, it would be really good to hear and get a lot more information about price and specs, as at the moment, people are having to put a lot of money in their pocket for consoles as things are just getting more and more expensive. So, to round out my thoughts, my personal view on all of this is I do think the Steam Machine could be a fantastic piece of kit, but personally, I don't think it's really aimed at people like me. As somebody who already owns a PC, a PlayStation, and other ways to play, it feels like a nice extra, but not something essential. But for somebody who wants a simple gateway into PC gaming, or wants a more relaxed way to play Steam games on their TV, it could be brilliant. And that's why I think the conversation is so interesting, because the question really isn't, is it powerful enough? But the real question being, has Valve made a machine for the future of gaming, or has it arrived just that bit too late? I think for me personally, I really hope that the console is going to be able to produce a 4K output. As for the price point being rumoured, as I mentioned previously, you're going to get a PlayStation for that price, which can output 4K visuals. I do get that with Steam, you are getting a cheaper marketplace, so in the long run, you'll make your money back on these games. But for me, that's the real key point. I don't mind spending that bit of extra money to get a console that is going to be 4K, but what's the point in this day and age of releasing a console that is only going to be 1080p when there are so many, even the Switch 2 can dock to do output 4K to some games. So I think it's really important either they look to make a pro version of the console which can be produced in 4K in the future, or this is already going to be a 4K console. I definitely think that for me personally, it's going to be a really interesting one. As if it is a 4K console, I would buy it, as it'd be really great to have my PC, my Steam Deck to have for games that are on handheld, and then also have my Steam Machine which I can use so when I just want to turn the console on and play games very simply in bed rather than having to load up my PC to access my Steam library. I definitely think it's something that would get me fully into the Steam ecosystem if they do the Steam Deck correctly and release it or give a 4K alternative at some point in the future, even if the first console of the Steam Machine isn't one that I buy, as I don't think it's powerful enough. I do think it has a great amount of potential, and I really can't wait to see where Valve go with it, as I think that they're a console leader and a leader in the gaming space, and I think that they do things for the gamers which people like Sony and Microsoft at the moment aren't doing. So, to round out the video, everybody, I really do think the Steam Deck can be a massive success if it's placed in the correct way. I really think that this first edition of the console is aimed at people who are looking to move away from your general, more day-to-day consoles like the Xbox and the PlayStation and move towards a console which they're going to try and get more value out of their money for long term. With, as you know, Steam have a way better market price and way cheaper games, so I think it would be a really great way for them to grab new potential customers who don't necessarily play in the PC or Steam ecosystem at the moment. I really do think it's an interesting concept, and I really hope that they can come up with some sort of 4K alternative in the future, even if the Steam machine isn't a 4K console. I really do think it's a really great way and a really big step forward in the console market, and I really think that Steam will show other console makers how much more cheaper they can make it, more accessible they can make games. In the comment section down below, I'd really enjoy hearing your views on the Steam machine, and if you're going to get it, if you think it's a machine for you, or who you think the machine is aimed at. I really hope you've enjoyed listening to my thoughts, and if you have, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. It has been Freaksy, and I hope to see you again in the next video.